Should schools be required to have EMS and ambulances at football games? Welcome to That's Gotta Hurt. I'm Dr. David Geier. I did an interview with a writer for the Washington Post literally just a few minutes ago, and he wanted to talk about whether or not ambulances and paramedics, EMS, should be at high school football games. And if they should be, how can we do it? And it makes sense. If you're a parent of a high school football player, you might think, well, of course, we should definitely have EMS at football games. If my son goes down with a serious head injury or neck injury or maybe, cardiac arrest, absolutely, I want EMS right there to tend to him, evaluate him, get him to a hospital as soon as possible. We know that that can be really difficult, though, because we see and we hear of circumstances all the time where somebody has a serious injury or a serious illness and EMS isn't there, and it takes 15 minutes, 20 minutes for EMS to arrive. So you may think, absolutely, EMS should be required to be at high school football games. But it isn't quite as easy as you might think. First of all, the model that most schools and most ambulance companies, EMS services use is somewhat of a volunteer model. It goes something like this. If there aren't any emergencies going on in your town, in your city, or in your county, yes, the EMS in your area may try to put an ambulance and a couple of paramedics at that site. Now, you got to remember, there's a lot of football games going on all at the same time across your town. So depending on the size of the school, they may be able to put somebody there. But the problem with it is, again, it's volunteer. So if a car accident or fire, for instance, a serious emergency occurs somewhere nearby, there's a good chance that those paramedics and that ambulance may have to respond to that emergency. Now, you could say, we absolutely want you to stay no matter what. But most EMS organizations based, city, county, whatever it is, don't have enough ambulances, don't have enough paramedics to not only cover the serious injuries and emergencies that can happen all across your town, but then also cover every single high school football game. And I've heard that from athletic directors that absolutely want, paramedics to basically stay on site the whole time. So they say, well, we might be willing to pay. All right, let's just say for a second that a high school athletic director is willing to pay $200, maybe $400, $500 a game to guarantee that, an EMS group, paramedics and an ambulance can stay on site. Well, again, it gets back to resources. Does your local EMS have enough ambulances, have enough either on-duty or off-duty paramedics that could cover every high school? So that's problem number one. If they don't, then what do you do? Well, the athletic director could hire a private company if there's a private company that provides, again, paramedics and ambulances that are sort of earmarked for special events. If there's a company like that, then yes, you absolutely could do that. That gets to an issue of school resources. Does your school have the resources to pay $400, $500 a game? Maybe the big schools, maybe the private high schools could do that, but could a small school with maybe 20 players on the team, maybe 50 spectators in the stands, could they afford it? That's certainly tricky. And again, that gets to the question of what do you do about the rural areas where EMS may be having to cover not just that town, but an area 100 miles wide. That could be really tricky as well. Now, there's absolutely no question, and I've heard this proposed before or thrown out there, not proposed at the government level, but it could be done that way, where you basically say, all right, that school, if they don't have EMS, if they don't have ambulance on site for the entire game, you can't have the game. You can't play football. That easily could be done. But again, you got the limited resources. Can EMS actually support that? And again, you've got all the high schools playing all their games at the same start time. So that becomes very, very tricky. The other trick to that is, Well, then why just football and football games? What about football practices, especially at the beginning of August when you've got the heat and the risk of deaths due to heat stroke? What about other sports and activities that have high rates of catastrophic injuries? What about cheerleading? What about soccer games and basketball practices? You can have cardiac events, you can have head injuries, you can certainly have broken legs and all sorts of serious injuries. Should EMS also be there? It becomes very tricky. So I think right now, at this point, the volunteer model is probably, it's not perfect, but it's probably the best way to go. You get, ambulances and paramedics to cover as many games as possible, knowing that they may get called away if a serious injury happens. Now, I'll tell you what would be even better than having EMS present in every game: have athletic trainers. Hire athletic trainers for your school, or at least partner with a local sports medicine program that donates the services of an athletic trainer. They can do so much more. Yes, they can cover your emergent injuries and illnesses, but they can do so much more. Evaluate and rehab athletes after injuries, communicate with the team doctors, monitor for field conditions and weather conditions, help with equipment. There's so many things that they can do outside of just the injuries. That would be my recommendation to start, is to hire an athletic trainer for your school, for your sports team. Okay, thank you. That's going to wrap up That's Gotta Hurt with Dr. David Geier. I'm sure this is a topic that is sensitive to a lot of people, so if you disagree with me, leave your comments below this video. Remember, on Wednesdays, I do my This Week in Injuries, the weekly roundup of injuries in the NFL, Major League Baseball, soccer, basketball, any athletes and their injuries that you want me to discuss, leave those in the comments below. Also, if you like information on athletes and injuries and some fun stuff too, subscribe to my video channel and you'll get these episodes delivered daily directly to you. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you right here next time.